Welcome back to another Five Nights at Freddy's theory, and today we're taking another look at the week before. Now, some of you are probably wondering why we're once again going over this book since we just covered it in the last video that I did, and some of you might even notice that was a few weeks ago at this point. What's taken me so long? And all I can really say is I've been a little busy. So what exactly is there still to discuss from the week before? Well, like I said in the last video, there is a ton of lore and secrets hidden in this book. So much so that I could probably talk about this for another year. But rather than doing that, I'm going to try and wrap up as many things as I want to talk about in this one video. And since I want this to be the last time that I talk about this book, at least for a while, I want to talk about everything that's been keeping me up at night for the past few weeks, including the theory that started with just 3 words. Those 3 words being, especially not then. Now, I know you guys probably know this book back to front by now, and you don't need me to tell you exactly where this happens, but just humor me for a second. This occurs on page 44 whenever Ralph is saying how he's never taken Capella to a Freddy's location. The exact thing that Ralph says is that he's never taken Capella for the family discount that he has. Quote, "One of your employee perks is family discounts, but for some reason, you've never brought Capella here. Not even on Bring Your Child to Work Day, especially not then." Now, what's really interesting about the page this quote appears on is that a lot of the community right now is trying to decipher if it's still canon to the book. It seems like it might have been a first draft that somehow slipped through the cracks because it has 2 big problems with it. One, there's an item that is required to get to this page that you don't get until later in the book. And 2, this page contradicts something that the book says later on in the book, that Capella has never been to a Freddy's location, but Ralph says later that she has. If you want to learn more about how this page might not be canon to the book and what that would mean for the story overall, I highly recommend checking out the Unwithered Truths video on this topic. They do an amazing job covering it, and frankly, I think their editing might be a bit better than mine. Now, hang on just one second. You are trying to use evidence on a page that other people are trying to say ain't part of the book no more? Why are you trying to do that? That is a fantastic question, and I'm so glad you brought it up. Why am I talking about a piece of evidence on a page that might not be canon to the book? Well, I think it's the only thing that is important on this page, because everything else on this page is retold to us later in the book. The fact that Capella has never been to a Freddy's location? Oh, sorry, Ralph just forgot and tells us later that she did go, and she hated it. The fact that he needs a number in order to answer the phone call. Oh, we get that phone call on a Fredbear's Family Diner ticket. The fact that we hear a phone call that is eerily similar to one that we hear in the games. And then later on, we hear that exact phone call word for word. The only detail that is on this page that is not retold to us is take your child to work day. This got me really excited because that meant that one of the incidences that we've been talking about for years now, either the MCI, the crying child's death, whatever, could be linked to a specific date on the calendar. Take your child to work day. So I decided to look up when Take Your Child to Work Day happens because it's apparently a national holiday. And I found out that Take Your Child to Work Day first appeared in 2003, but before that, it was known as Take Your Daughter to Work Day, and the first time it occurred was in April of 1993. This is important to note because every incident that we've been talking about for the past 10 years has happened in the 80s. The crying child's death, Charlie's death, the MCI, the DCI, they all have to occur before 1987 because we see all the animatronics haunted by that point. Every incident except for one. Elizabeth's death. Now, I know what I'm saying sounds a little bit crazy and unlikely considering Fazbear Entertainment is a children's entertainment company, so they would probably try and make their own Take Your Child to Work Day before the national one is made because, let's face it, they would make money if they told their employees to bring their kids to work. But it does give a huge reason as to why Elizabeth is at Circus Baby's Pizzeria in the first place. because William knows what Circus Baby is capable of and how dangerous she is, and he tells Elizabeth multiple times to stay away from her, as we hear from her voice lines in her game. But she's at the opening of Circus Baby's Pizzeria. It just doesn't make sense unless she needed to be there, because it's take your child to work day. Now, let me paint you a quick picture. In FNAF 3, we get to hear old recordings from Ralph saying not to put on the Springlock suit because at a sister location, they had multiple simultaneous Springlock failures. And in sister location, Mike gets forced into a Springlock suit that is ready to go off at a moment's notice. And this doesn't prove that Ralph was at Circus Baby's opening, but if he was at Circus Baby's opening, it would make sense as to why he has to record the message, he has to send it out to everyone, and he's glad that Capella didn't come to work with him that day because he saw William's daughter get shoved into Circus Baby and possibly die right before his eyes. So, in the strangest way possible, somehow, the week before, a book that is entirely about the FNAF 1 building tells us when Circus Baby's Pizzeria, and therefore Elizabeth's death, occurs on the timeline. We know that FNAF 2 happens in 1987, and the first Take Your Child to Work Day happened in 1993, so Elizabeth's death has to occur after FNAF 2. But it has to occur before FNAF 1 because Ralph remembers the incident happening, and we take his place the week after. This location that we've gotten so little information about because it barely existed. It was close to opening, and then Elizabeth died the day before it was supposed to open. We've heard about this just one time from sister location, and that was it. And now we finally get to put it on the timeline, firmly between FNAF 2 and FNAF 1. Now you see what I mean whenever I say that 3 words literally sent me down the biggest rabbit hole that I've been in for a long time. And it's not the only rabbit hole that I went down because of this book. There's another part in this book that's been making me think, because at the end of last video, I talked about how Ralph seems to remind me a lot of the Crying Child with some of the things that he says and does. But there's another character in this franchise that Ralph seems to have a little bit of similarities with as well. And I do mean small similarities, because this character doesn't have a lot of characteristics to really pinpoint on a lot of people, but he has enough that Ralph seems to fit the bill very well. Old Man Consequences. Now, a lot of you are probably just sitting there rolling your eyes, but just hear me out for just 2 seconds, because some of these endings sound very similar to the word consequences without literally spelling out the word. On page 100, whenever Chica starts dragging Ralph off the forest, we get this. This is what happens when you break the rules. You have only yourself to blame, but it's a shame that Capella will have to suffer for your incompetence. And on page 187, whenever Ralph gets stuffed into an animatronic, we get this. All your choices have led you here, and now you're out of options. The only thing you could do is wait. Ralph is literally describing consequences without saying the word. And let's take another quick look at Chica dragging Ralph off into the forest. Why does she do this? I mean, the rest of the book implies that the animatronics don't want Ralph to leave. They kill him multiple times, they try to bribe him in some ways, and they even try to follow him home and leave the pizzeria at the end of the week. But for some reason, Chica doesn't drag him back to the pizzeria, which is even something that Ralph thinks is going to happen. Instead, she drags him off to the forest. And you know what other character we meet in a forest? Old Man Consequences. Now, let's take a quick look at Old Man Consequences' design. He is a red character with a long muzzle, sharp teeth, and enjoys going fishing. Now, a lot of people used to say that this was probably some sort of alligator or crocodile due to the fact that it would fit the fishing theme better. But more recently, I've been hearing a lot of people say that this character is most likely a fox. The red color, the long muzzle, the sharp teeth, all fitting Foxy, and the fishing theme fitting the fact that Foxy is a pirate. And this was all said because they were trying to point Old Man Consequences to Michael. But Michael's not the only one that has connections to Foxy. In fact, in the book and the games, we hear multiple times Ralph say that Foxy is his favorite character. Now, combining the facts that Ralph literally describes what consequences are in this book without actually saying the word consequences, with the fact that Ralph's favorite character is Foxy, which once again is repeated multiple times throughout this book, with my previous theory that this book is just a representation of what Ralph is experiencing after his death, just experiencing the week that he last lived over and over again, seeing every outcome that could have happened. That makes me think that Old Man Consequences, this mysterious character that's only shown up in, what, 3 games now, could be our phone guy from the very first game, from 10 years ago at this point. The last thing that I need to talk about from the week before is the only other character from Fazbear Entertainment that is named in this book: Dave. Now, if that's not already ringing bells in your head of who this character might be, Dave is a character that we meet in the Silver Eyes trilogy, except that's not actually Dave that we meet. Dave is just the name that he gives himself so that he can work undercover at Fazbear Entertainment. We later learn that Dave Miller is actually William Afton. This is an extremely important detail that we need to figure out whether or not is true, because for the longest time, many timelines have been saying that William Afton has died before the events of FNAF 1. But Dave, the pseudonym that we know William Afton uses in the Silver Eyes trilogy, shows up in this book, literally during the events right before FNAF 1, the week before FNAF 1, meaning that William Afton could still be alive by the time FNAF 1 happens. Now, it is hard to figure out if Dave truly is William Afton in this book, considering we only get a handful of interactions with the guy, and most of them are just Ralph calling in order to try and figure out what he needs to do with the animatronics in order to fix them that night. Like whenever they're getting overcharged and he needs to take away some of that extra charge, or whenever he needs to reattach Bonnie's head to his body after he finds it on the ground. It is important to note that Ralph does call Dave because Dave is the pizzeria's mechanic, something that we know William Afton did in years past. But after looking at all the interactions that we have with the guy, that's really the only thing that I can definitively pinpoint to Dave that links him to William. Sure, Dave does have a weird attitude with Ralph, but to be honest, are you going to have a good attitude whenever somebody's calling you at 3 or 4 in the morning asking you about your job? I'm not going to be. But then I thought that maybe Dave wasn't where we needed to be looking. Maybe Dave was a huge red herring and everyone was falling for it, thinking that Dave was William Afton. And in order to prove that Dave was or wasn't William Afton, we need to find the safe room. But like most mysteries seem to be in FNAF, finding the safe room in this book is impossible. You cannot get to the safe room in this book. And I knew that getting to the safe room was probably not going to happen, even though I thought that maybe there was a possibility that Ralph crawls through the air vents and then stumbles into it by accident. Or maybe we'd at least get a hint towards it by running past the safe room wall and then hearing pounding and scratching and clawing of something trying to make its way out when Ralph realizes, oh yeah, there used to be a room where this wall is. But of course, there's nothing that concrete, that obvious in this book. So that's it, right? William Afton is Dave from the week before, meaning that William Afton doesn't die by the time of FNAF 1. I would like it to be that simple, but there's one ending in this book that seems to throw a huge wrench into that. On page 170, we can find this ending. Quote, "You maintain eye contact with Chica as you toss Mr. Cupcake into the vent to your right. The toy bounces around in the metal shaft. Chica becomes enraged and she rushes at you, screaming. At the same time, Mr. Cupcake sails through the air and lands on the floor between you. Chica staggers to a halt, and the two of you stare down at the object. Something has taken a bite out of the top of it, exposing electronics inside its rubbery outer layer. You turn toward the vent and squint to see what or who is inside. Meanwhile, Chica backs up and leaves the office with the deformed Mr. Cupcake. What could have scared Chica away, you wonder in horror? You decide to beat a hasty retreat as well, but before you even have your coat on, loud knocking emanates from the ventilation shaft. You crouch to get a better look at the inside. You see 2 glowing white eyes, then a wide, grinning mouth that is ready to take a bite out of you. Game over. I want to take note on the fact that during this ending, this animatronic that is coming out of the vent is not named. Every other ending surrounding this vent, the animatronic that is coming out is named. In fact, it's Bonnie every other time, but the fact that Bonnie is not named for this ending in particular is really interesting, especially because this animatronic does something that I don't think lines up with Bonnie. He takes a bite out of Mr. Cupcake. Combining that with Chica being scared of this animatronic before it even exits the ventilation shaft, and Ralph describing it to have a smile as it's exiting, this all makes me think of one animatronic in particular, Springtrap. Not only does he have that gorgeous smile that he's showing off to the world the moment he's leaving that ventilation shaft for Ralph to see, he also is going to be more likely to scare Chica than Bonnie, and he seems more likely to take a bite out of Mr. Cupcake than any of the other animatronics that we see. Am I 100% sold on this theory? No, absolutely not. It seems like there's a lot of evidence pulling in both directions, but it's very important for us to try and figure out which of these two is the true case. So I want you guys to tell me what you think down in the comment section. I want you to let me know if you think that Dave is William Afton in disguise, or if you think that the animatronic coming out of this vent is Springtrap. And as long as everything works out correctly, after this video is posted around 6 p.m., we should have a live stream here on YouTube that you guys could join and have more of a talk back live with more people, including myself. You'll be able to tell me what you think the correct answer is live, as well as being able to tell me what you think about the other theories that were in this video, and we'll just have a nice relaxing stream that a lot of people will get to enjoy. I really hope I get to see you there. And with that, I'm gonna leave this video here. We talked a lot about the week before in these last 2 videos, so I'm hopefully going to have enough self-control to put the book on the shelf and wait until at least the new year to talk about it again. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit the like button down below on the video, subscribe to see more of my content, and leave a comment of what you liked about the video. Once again, don't forget to check out the Withered Truths video after this one if you already have it. It should be linked down below. Thanks again for watching to the very end, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!